Let's talk about UFC 300. It is absolutely a stat card, and I'm very excited to go watch this one live. But I also think that people have a right to criticize this card because of the fact that Dana White hyped this card up to be something that we've never seen before. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. And I actually came across this thread from someone the other day. And again, we're going to black out the names here. I don't want to go after anyone in particular, but I have seen people have takes like this. And we're going to read this thread right here. And it says, the MMA media making fun of this event because it doesn't have a main event is so funny. What weirdos. This is the most depth stack card I've ever seen. So I think they're right and they're wrong about this, but let's read the rest of the thread here. I get the main doesn't have the wow factor perhaps, but the narrative around this event is weird for sure. It's absolutely stacked. I mean, the main card is insane. Holloway Gaethje is nuts. Pretty much all of these fights, bar a couple, could headline a UFC card on their own, and we're getting them combined. Goes to show that the people will complain about anything really 100%. I think all of them could headline a card. So I don't think they're wrong about this. You're exactly right. All the fights that are on UFC 300 could absolutely headline a card, but there's this narrative that the media is like anti-UFC 300 because they're just doing it for the sake of complaining. And look, the guy here also says doesn't have the main event according to Ariel and Luke Thomas. Well, listen, I think the main event deserves to be criticized because of the way that Dana White hyped up this card. Let's go back to the quote he had from a couple months ago. He says, you want to build these cards that make people lose their minds, but there's also so much more to it with 300. There's a whole what is it feel of the show it's going to be. We put on a live event and a television show too, and what are we going to build around this event? So there's a lot more that goes into this than just the card, but what you can expect is the first prelim of the night for you is going to be like, holy shit, can't believe this is the first prelim of the night. That's insane. This isn't even these two shouldn't even be on the first prelim of the night. And we found out now that the first prelim on this card is going to be Deiveson Figueiredo, the former flyweight champion, taking on former bantamweight champion Cody Garbrandt. Dana's 100% right about this. That's how good UFC 300 is going to be. And then this article then goes on to speculation about what the main event can be. The problem is that Dana White sort of did this in reverse. Like, the card is absolutely stacked, but for it being UFC 300, the main event between Jamal Hill and Alex Pereira is a great fight, but it's not like, oh my God, I can't believe they put this fight together. I think most people figured this fight was going to happen. So kind of getting back to that thread that I just mentioned there before, people not understanding or people saying that the media is just going after it. It's because Dana White hyped it up to be something it wasn't. He made this event being like, oh my goodness, this is going to be like on something we've never seen. But the main event is just a regular pay-per-view main event. It's a great fight. I'm not doing this video to disrespect Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill by any means. I absolutely love the fight. But this isn't the type of main event that I think people expected in terms of what Dana was trying to hype up. I think that's the issue here. I think people expected something out of the box, like whether it's GSP coming back or Brock Lesnar or Ronda Rousey, or maybe like a fight where Leon Edwards and Islam would fight or something like that. I know Islam has Ramadan, but you get what I'm saying here. Like something that is different than what we're expecting. Like a Jamal Hill Alex Pereira fight is going to be outstanding. I'm totally here for it. But it's not the type of fight that I think people were expecting the way Dana was hyping up this card. So that's where I don't understand how people are still being like, oh, people are just complaining for the sake of complaining. No, they're complaining because Dana made it out to be bigger than it was. Let's call this like it is. Dana did this card in reverse. He booked some really good fights, but he left the main event till the last minute. This reminds me of the guy who's, doing his project for high school the night before. That's kind of what it looks like they did. And I don't think I'm crazy in saying this. Jon Jones did an interview with Submission Radio, and I'm sure the UFC wasn't happy about this, but they kind of leaked it that Jon Jones was asked to headline the UFC card just a couple weeks ago. So you're going to Jon Jones just a couple weeks ago for the main event of a card that's supposed to be like spectacular and out of the blue. And by the way, had Jon Jones headlined this card against whoever, this would be, the type of wow factor that we're like, wow, Jon Jones came back just in time for UFC 300. That would have been it. But Jones declined because he's like, look, I got one fight left. I'm not going to do this on short notice. That's pretty much what he said in the interview with Submission Radio. So Jones basically saying look, I'm at the tail end of my career. I'm not just going to take a somewhat short notice fight just to save the day here. This all comes down to the UFC stacking UFC 299 and other events and leaving very little options for that wow factor here. I mean, top to bottom, this card is completely stacked. It may go down as one of the best cards of all time. I mean, the people in the discussion here were 100% right. This is, all these fights could headline cards. They're fantastic. But, looking a little bit closer here, this just isn't the type of wow main event that you want. I'm very much looking forward to the fight, but this isn't like the wow type factor. So I think fans have a right to be upset about the wow factor that's not here for UFC 300, but they can't complain about the quality of this card. If anyone's out here saying this isn't pay-per-view worthy, I haven't seen anyone say that, but if people were saying that, then yeah, you're out to lunch. I mean, like I said, it looks like what we're hearing is the first fight of the night is going to be Davison Figueroa, Cody Garbrandt. Like, that's an awesome fight that could easily headline a card. So the UFC's done a good job in that regard. But, you know, looking a bit closer, like, it would have been good if they got Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards on this card, like, as a third title fight. I think that's one thing that is lacking on this card is 3 title fights. But again, they're probably saving that for another card because I don't even want to know what these cards are going to look like after UFC 300. And what about International Fight Week? Like, the UFC has pinned themselves into a corner. Usually that's a big card. What on earth is going to headline that card in a couple months? They're already struggling for UFC 301. At the time I'm recording this, it seems like Alexander Pantoja would be on that card. He's the flyweight champion, but who does he fight? It's supposed to be Brandon Moreno, but he lost last weekend. They're not going to do Brandon Royval and Pantoja fighting so soon, and Royval having an injury as well. I mean, do they pull Amir Albazi out? Does he fight? Manel Kopp shouldn't be able to fight for a title. He missed weight in his last fight. Like, what are they going to do for that card? But in my opinion, like, this is a very stacked card. But like I said, the part that Dana kind of threw people off with was the wow factor. Like, I'm going to blow. I couldn't find the exact quote that he said, but I know he said in other interviews, like, we're going to blow you away with this main event. And that's not really what this fight does. It's a very, very, very good fight. I want to emphasize that, but it's not the type of wow factor that happens. And look, this happened with their other events, UFC 100, UFC 200. They had fights fall out. Like, people got to remember too, that UFC 200 was headlined by Amanda Nunes and Miesha Tate. That's probably not what they had in mind to begin with. In fact, what was the original fight that they were looking at here? It was supposed to be Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. So that's a fight that fell out as well. They were also supposed to have Cormier and Jones. That at least is a little bit more understanding because at least they attempted to make like a huge stacked fight for the main event, and we ended up with this. They couldn't. They didn't even have like a fight that had fallen out. I'm sure they wanted Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor on this card, but that's the UFC for not playing their cards right, not realizing how hard it is to book Conor McGregor for a fight. I still don't know the exact reason why Conor and Chandler have not been booked yet. But yeah, that would have helped. You know, again, there's probably a few other options. I never really thought that Lesnar or Rousey was going to come back, but that at least would have been the type of fight that would have got people sort of wowed here. So this is an unbelievably stacked card, but I think people also have a right to, like I said, go back and kind of nitpick at it a little bit. And the last thing I'll mention about this card, and you know, I've said this many times and people may disagree, this fight is absolutely not needed. Justin Gaethje and Holloway. Am I going to watch the hell out of it? Absolutely. Is it a fun fight? Absolutely. But Max Holloway, I mean, his management, I think they dropped the ball here. They could, I mean, right now we'd be doing Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria. You know how big of a fight that would be right now? And that fight may never happen now. What happens if Gaethje knocks out Holloway? What if Holloway gets absolutely, I think this is going to be a competitive fight, but what happens if Gaethje goes out there and destroys Max Holloway and he can't fight for a while? Well, that Ilia Topuria fight, that ship has sailed. I just think this, and again, Gaethje, like, I think he's got a good argument for a title shot. Like, why is he doing this fight? Gaethje really doesn't have much to gain here. If Gaethje loses, he's probably lost his title shot, right? I would think. What does Holloway have to lose? Holloway can still go down to featherweight, but, you know, it's going to be a harder sell with him coming off a loss. So I think this whole thing, while it's a fun fight, and I'm not going to be the guy here that's saying, like, this isn't a fun fight and I won't watch it. Of course I'm going to watch it. I just think optically, this kind of messed things up because you could have done Holloway and Topuria right now, and you could have given Gaethje the next crack at Islam, and then you could have done Oliveira and Arman winner fight Gaethje and Islam winner. That's all I'm getting at here. So again, great card, but I also think fans have a right to critique this card because of the fact that the main event is just a very good fight, but not a wow fight, if that makes sense. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you seeing comments like this too? I'm seeing people saying, oh, people are just complaining about the card for the sake of complaining. No, they are not. They are complaining about the wow factor. And that's what I hopefully articulated to you in this video. That's all I'm getting at here is I think 300, like I said, amazing card, may go down as the best card in UFC history, but people do have a right to take out the wow factor because I think they built this card from the ground up instead of going top to bottom. If they would have started out with the big main event and then picked their big fights after that, I think the UFC would be in better shape. Just my opinion. That's what we're doing here, an opinion video. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.